Wire wrapping is a great way to turn a simple stone into a really beautiful statement piece. In this case, we're using a single ceramic bead with a very large stringing hole. It's about a 3mm stringing hole to create this simple but elegant wire wrap pendant. To make your own, you're going to need 12 gauge silver colored wire. This is a permanently covered, this is a copper wire that is permanently covered with anti-tarnish silver. The most important part of this project is probably choosing your bead. Number one thing, it can really be any material, any shape that you want. I like to use sort of a funky shaped bead just because it's a nice time to use that as a focal piece. But all you really need, all that has to happen here is that it's a large enough hole to accommodate this 12 gauge wire. Okay, to get started, you're going to need your bead. You're going to need a length of wire. I go ahead and leave it on the spool and just use as much as I need. You're probably going to need around a foot, maybe 14 inches max, I would say. But like I said, I just leave it on the actual roll so that I save as much and I don't have as many scraps. A ring mandrel comes in handy if you need help bending the wire later on. Mostly you're just going to be using your hands to do that though. And then to finish stuff up, you're going to need your flush cutter, as always when working with wire, round nose pliers to make your final little curly cue at the end, and then I just keep chain nose pliers handy because I like them. Okay, so choose which is going to be the top of your bead and which is going to be the bottom. Okay, I kind of like that this is sort of a triangle, and I'm going to make the wider end my bottom. So I'm going to stick the bead, or I'm going to stick the wire in the top of the bead hole. Now I don't need it to come out all the way because I'm wrapping the wire all the way around this. I don't need to secure it that way. I just need to secure, the wire itself will secure it, if that makes sense. So don't stick it out and wrap it, or else you'll have this little sharp edge here that you don't need. So just stick it, most of the way in, and then start using your brute force to wrap this guy. And I think the other nice thing about not cutting this off is that you have this that's almost a handle that helps you shape the wire against the bead. You want it to be fairly tight up against the bead. Just kind of keep doing this. You notice I have some little shavings coming off. That's fine. Just the paint comes off and the inside of the ceramic. It's not a problem. We're going to wrap it around 2 full times. So we're almost back here to our starting point. And if you notice, I kind of start tighter than I want it to be. I'm kind of putting this right next to each other. When I'm done adjusting, I will adjust it so that they're sort of more on top of each other here to give the pendant a wider appearance. But for right now, that helps you get it really tight if you're kind of like overlapping them and using them like that. Okay, so you can see here we have wrap this all around, and now we're about to create this curved piece here. I like to use a little bit more than I think I need, because I will have to trim it a little bit. But let's see, we're going to use the flush side of our pliers on our piece here, and I'm going to give us another 2 inches of tail here to work with. So just give that a cut. Notice this is a very heavy gauge wire and it's tougher. Okay, good. I got a nice flush cut on that. Now this wire, as I said, is a copper. It's a copper wire that's coated in the silver. I'm not going to sand that because I don't want to reveal more of that copper. The silver, it's not actual like silver the metal, it's silver the color, but I don't want to reveal any more of that core than I have to. So we're going to go ahead and cover that, and it won't scrape you anyway, but so I'm not going to actually sand that or file that piece off because I don't want to reveal more of that copper. Okay, so now, again, here's the front of our pendant. We got that nice and tight. Okay, now it's time for us to make our big curve the opposite way. So I'm kind of like starting that curve. This is where the mandrel comes in handy for me, at least. I like to kind of use that as a form to sort of push back against the wire. If you can see what I'm doing there. See how that's making that sort of almost like a gooseneck kind of motion here. Again, this is just total brute force. the shape that you want. Then you can start getting that a little bit more precisely defined. Again, a lot of the time when you're working with wire, nylon jaw pliers are really nice, but I just don't feel like in this case they give us enough power, because they do slip quite a bit. And in a bold kind of design like this, the tool marks don't happen to bother me. I try to hide them as much as I can, but I think they're fine. And in fact, if you get too many that you don't like, you can always hammer this on a steel bench block with a textured hammer and give it the design feature of texture rather than just simply, oops, I nicked this. Okay, so we have the general design here that we had going. Actually, in this case, it might be fun, if you do have a steel bench block, to put this guy down and hammer him a little bit, the bail part here, but you certainly don't have to. Now I'm going to open this up again just a little bit because I want that to be a wider positioning there. So it's definitely sort of an abstract design, but as you can see, fairly simple to do consistently as well. But it doesn't have sort of a cookie cutter feel. It's really something that you can make your own design piece that works for whatever your bead is, whoever your audience is, or just for you yourself in whatever outfit you happen to be wearing. So grab some wire, grab a big hole bead, and get to wrapping.